This is Jeff Badger, the Grinding Doc, and this is going to be a very short video for people who are unfamiliar with the concept of white layer, phase transformations, rehardened martensite, newly formed martensite, or phase transformations in nickel alloys too. And so here's what happens. You grind the workpiece, and when you grind that workpiece at the top surface, at the ground surface, if the temperature got high enough to cause a recrystallization of, let's go with steel. Nickel alloys also experience this, but we're going to go with steel. If the temperature got high enough to cause the tempered martensite to transform into past the austenitizing temperature and then form untempered martensite, what's happened is the top surface has recrystallized. It hasn't melted. Steel did not melt, but the very top ground surface recrystallized. So what we have here is a ground surface right here. This is just the mounting material that you see. This is the ground surface, and what's happened is for a layer of about 0.2 millimeters, that top surface has passed the austenitizing temperature and is recrystallized. Now the way you see this is you have to cut the workpiece, then you have to polish it in a polishing machine, and then you have to dip it in acid for a few seconds and then look at it under a microscope. When you do that, the areas that have newly formed martensite that have passed the austenitizing temperature, that have recrystallized, come out white. And then below that, you're going to have material that has tempered, that is over-tempered, that is softened, and that's because we've basically tempered the workpiece in the grinding machine. And tempered material comes out typically a little bit darker, although sometimes it gets a little weird, but it comes out a different shade of gray. And then below that you have virgin layer. So this particular workpiece, we have a white layer that's about 0.2 millimeters deep. And then below that we have an over-tempered layer that's maybe 0.15 millimeters deep. And then below that we have workpiece that has not changed. Now you'll notice you don't see any cracking in this white layer. Just because you have white layer doesn't mean you have cracking. In fact, most rehardening burn, most white layer doesn't have cracks. Things were not bad enough to cause it to crack. Things were just bad enough to cause it to get white layer. And then you have all the issues associated with white layer, and that is a weaker material, a brittle material, a material that's going to have a shorter fatigue life, a material that doesn't hold coatings as well, a material that's more likely to crack, a material that's more likely to chip. Bad things happen when you get white layer. But fundamentally, white layer is just a recrystallization of the iron molecules, iron carbon molecules, face-centered cubic, body-centered cubic, and therefore we have a different phase of material. And basically what we're doing is we're heat treating the steel, but we're not heat treating it in the furnace. We're heat treating it in the grinding machine. It's hard enough to heat treat a material in the furnace and get it right. We definitely don't want to heat treat it in the grinding machine. Jeff Badger, the Grinding Doc, the basics of grinding.